All please rise and pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hereby announced that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meetings Act. Proper notice of meeting dates will be given in the Morris News Feed and the Morris County Daily Record, and posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider a decision. A quorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Karen, roll call, please.
Mr. Baca?
Here.
Mrs. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Eaton?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. McCabe?
Here.
Mr. Webster?
Present.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Rizzo?
Here.
And Mr. Cianciati?
Present.
Okay, special announcements. A couple procedure things. We have a full agenda tonight. As per the board's bylaws and our standard practice, there will be no new testimony after about 10:30. There will be a short recess around 9 o'clock. There is an error on the agenda as published. The agenda for this evening's meeting lists executive session. That is on there in error. There is no executive session this evening. A Whispering Woods hearing is on the agenda tonight. Board Attorney Sullivan will explain what a Whispering Woods hearing is when we get to that item on tonight's agenda before the application is actually heard. I suspect that some people may think that Whispering Woods means that the court has overturned a decision made by this board. That is not the case, and Mr. Sullivan will provide context and pertinent history later this evening. I see a lot of members of the public, so when I see new faces, I like to go over the application process for any application that comes before this board. It's a standard procedure governed by the municipal land use law and this board's bylaws. Applications are heard only once deemed complete. Proceedings with an application include an opening statement by the applicant's attorney or the applicant. The applicant calls witnesses. The board will qualify them and hear testimony. The board will hear questions of the witness. The questions must be related to the testimony provided, are not comments, and the order of the questions are the board's professionals, board members, then members of the public. Once the questioning is done, the witness steps down, the next witness comes up, and the process is repeated. After all witnesses, members of the public may make comments on the application and or provide testimony. The applicant gets an opportunity for a closing statement, and then the board deliberates openly and publicly in front of you at the meeting. Approval of meeting minutes. The next item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes for our last meeting. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes of September 25th, 2023 regular meeting?
Page 4, the last sentence. Mr. Schultz stated would not be heard next month. I assume that means Mr. Schultz stated the application would not be heard next month.
If you don't like my voice, I am heard, and that's correct. So the application will not be heard. Thank you for that. Any other corrections?
Move the minutes be approved as corrected.
Second?
I'll second.
Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second, please. Let's maybe move that away from Saji further down that one. All right. I'd like to repeat that. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Thank you. This part of the meeting is to hear comments from members of the public on matters other than those items on tonight's agenda. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that part of the meeting. Correspondence and bills. Do we have any?
I have one purchase order number 20231-898 to Stickle Koenig & Sullivan, 571 Compton Avenue, Cedar Grove, New Jersey, 07009 for professional services, invoice dated September 22nd, 2023 in the amount of $536.25.
Does your reading of that constitute a motion to approve for payment?
Yes, it does.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The bill is paid. Thank you. The first application for this evening's meeting is application BA 423, Scott Fletcher, 10 Kosakowski Drive, Block 8201, Lot 7. The application is being reviewed for completeness only tonight. There will be no testimony heard. I see somebody approaching. If you could please identify yourself, introduce yourself, spell your name for the record.
Yes, Attorney Rosemary Stone Dougherty with the law firm of Trowbridge and Morgap. Last name spelled STONE-DOUGHERTY. Here tonight on behalf of the application of Scott Fletcher, Block 82.01, Lot 7, 10 Kosakowski Drive. And again, as Mr. Chairman indicated, we're here for completeness.
Sounds good. Thank you. May I please hear from the board's professionals regarding completeness of the application? Ma'am?
Sure. I'm going to refer to my report dated October 19th of this year. First comment is checklist item number 13, waiver requested for binding zoning officers denial. I'll also refer that waiver to the board. Checklist item number 24, G1. Under G, there's certain information you have to provide for lots within 500 feet, and one of those requirements is the maximum lot area, or the required lot area within the maximum depth of lot measurement. And that means within the first 150 feet of the lot from its frontage, what is the area of the lot? And there are two lots, lot 9 and 10 in block 82.02, where that was not accomplished by the applicant's professional. So we'll come back to that comment, and I did discuss this comment with the applicant's professional today. Comment number 3 is a complete typo, so you can strike that entire comment. Now the last comment, number 4, does not relate to completeness. I discussed this comment also with the applicant's professional today. In my opinion, it's highly likely that the applicant will require a soil disturbance permit, because that chapter 19, states that if you grade, alter, fill, cut, excavate, or whatever, you alter the topography of the lot in excess of 200 cubic yards, you need this permit. And my opinion is it's very likely that is the case. Now, the applicant has a choice here. He can either pursue this permit as part of his variance application from this board, or he can pursue his permit in front of the township council, borough council, at a later date. So that decision rests with the applicant. So it is not a completeness. So let's go back to my comment number 2, checklist item number 24, G1. As I discussed with the applicant's professional, this requirement the applicant is conforming. It does not need a variance for lot area within the maximum depth of lot measurement. These two lots actually don't even front on Kosakowski Drive. They front on Corson Way. So if the board was so inclined, you could waive this for completeness, realizing that if you want this information, you could get it during the public hearing. So the only thing, you would have to take action on the waiver request for checklist item number 13. And if the applicant requests here tonight a waiver from checklist item number 24G1, I think you're in a position to grant that. At least I'm comfortable with it, but it ultimately is the board's decision.
All right. Let's move on to Liz, your report as well.
Sure. I did a letter as well, dated October 18th, 2023. The one item I highlighted, which was consistent with Leon's letter, is checklist F item 13, a copy of the zoning officer's decision from which the appeal is taken, if applicable. And a waiver was requested by the applicant because the zoning officer did not render a decision, and I, as well as Leon did, I deferred that to the board. Aside from that, I thought that the application was complete.
All right, so let's go, please, if we could, in reverse order. Do you know if the applicant wants to pursue a soil disturbance permit if needed as part of this application, or at council at a later date?
No, we, our professional spoke to the board professional, and we are going to go ahead and amend to add the soil disturbance permit. It makes more logical sense to do it at this time.
And we typically include that in completeness review. So is that a separate completeness review when this comes in, or are you able to?
There is.
Okay.
In chapter 19, I think it's 19-4, if I'm not mistaken, there's a series of requirements in order to deem the soil disturbance permit application complete. So the The applicant wants to pursue this for the next meeting, assuming it's a public hearing. They pursue that at their own risk. And also too, in that chapter 19, there are specific notice requirements that have to be in the public notice for a soil disturbance hearing. So there's two things here to get through before that soil disturbance could be heard by this board. One is completeness, and one is that the notice specifically references that the applicant's applying for a soil disturbance permit. Also too, the board should know that this application, the soil disturbance application, will go to not only myself, but the Borough Soil Consultant, Joe Norton. So it's imperative you get this in, I would say ideally 2 weeks before the next meeting, if you could, to give Joe and myself enough time to review.
Any questions on
No.
that? Let's go back to item 2 on the Leon's report, which is 24G1. This board recently has had a number of residential applications where we've talked about, if the case doesn't kick something in, we have been granting a waiver. Would you be requesting a waiver at this evening's meeting?
Yes, please.
Any board conversations on that request? For or against? Thank you. Ms. McKay notes it's consistent with what we've been doing, so, all right. Now, number 13, I want to ask, this is checklist F. So, checklist F requires that information, if the applicant is appealing a decision of the zoning officer, but we don't have that instance tonight. So my understanding is that your design professionals have calculated that this variance is needed, so you didn't go to why bother go to the zoning professional, not looking for words in your mouth, and came right to this board. So I am comfortable with that waiver because it makes sense. Questions on the process? And that waiver was requested. So there's 2 waivers that have been requested. Other than that, those 2 waivers, the application looks complete as per our professionals. Is there a motion from the board on this?
So it's, I'm sorry, quick question. It's complete pending the soil disturbance.
This application is complete,
This
and then
application,
there
right.
next week,
Right.
I'm sorry, scratch that, next month, there'd be completeness review of the soil disturbance permit application.
It's a new application.
It's related to this,
And
but
then-
it's its own application. It's
Got
the
it.
same case, same hearing, different application, different set of papers.
Right. We don't have to go through this.
I'm gonna go through the application, completeness for
The ones we were just approving, we don't have to go through.
Right, correct. If there were a motion to deem the application complete and grant the 2 waivers, item 13, item 24G1, we would not be talking about this
Items.
next month.
I'll make a motion to deem it complete with the waivers as requested.
Second. Karen, roll call, please, and Mike, Mr. Sullivan, what's the right number of people? We have a full
Yeah,
day, so-
we have a full board, so the 2 alternates are not eligible.
Okay, Mr. Baza?
Yes.
Mr. Cortez? Ms.
Mrs.
Eason?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
And Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Just a suggestion to the applicant's attorney.
Yes.
You might want to give Mr. Sullivan a draft notice well in advance.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and then, so your application's been deemed complete, you're welcome, you or your design professionals are welcome to contact the Borough Engineer on the soils. We will have, I think, a full agenda next month, so we certainly with completeness on the soil. I just don't know yet whether we have time for a hearing. You can check with the board secretary later this week or next week. Better sense.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Mr. Schultz, just I think for clarification, Karen has recalled Mr. Carr's voice was.
Can I skip over you? I apologize, Mr. Carr?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. record, materials on that soil disturbance permit should be received no later than November 13th, 2023. Considered it regular. The next matter on tonight's agenda is application BA 523, Anna and Joseph Gloria, 11 Trowbridge Road, block 72.01, lot 19. The application is being reviewed for completeness only tonight. There will be no testimony heard. I see someone is present. If you could have a seat and introduce yourself for the record, including spelling your name.
Good evening, Board. My name is Joseph Gloria. My last name is spelled O-R-I-A, and I am a resident of 11 Trowbridge Road in this town.
All right. Can we please hear from the board's professionals regarding completeness? Liz, why don't we start with you?
Okay. I also submitted a letter on October 18th, 2023 regarding the completeness of this application. I started with checklist F 24A. This is the topographic map showing existing proposed contours. A waiver was requested and I recommended it. 24E, elevations at the corner of all proposed buildings and paved areas. The waiver was requested and I recommended it. 24G, 1, this is data within 500 feet of the property, area of lot within maximum depth of lot area measurement. Again, waiver requested and was granted, I believe, at the last board meeting. Then the next one, 24G3, approximate building coverage and approximate total principal building floor area of all the floors. A waiver requested and was granted last month by the board. Item 25, this is all flood hazard areas, lakes, ponds, marshes, bogs, swamps, and streams. A waiver requested was granted last month. Item 26, this is asking for freshwater wetlands delineation through a variety of means, or A, B, and C. A waiver requested and was granted last month. Item 29, steep slope map details. A waiver requested and was granted last month. And item number 30, delineation of riparian zones. A waiver was requested and granted last month. So based on the above, I deemed the application, I recommend that the board deem the application complete.
And grant the waiver's requested.
Yes.
Yeah.
My report dated October 19th does not include any additional items that Liz did not cover. So based on the waivers that the board gave last month, and based on the requested waivers asked for tonight's meeting, that both Liz and I recommend you grant. So we do grant the waivers recently requested. Recommend you deem the application approved.
Questions from board members, for the professionals regarding completeness? There are no questions. Is there a motion?
Motion for completeness with the waivers as requested.
To approve those waivers?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Second?
Karen, roll call, please.
Mr. Mazza?
Yes.
Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Ethan?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes. Okay, your application has been deemed complete. The board secretary will put this application on the agenda for the regular November meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Just note that appropriate fees have to be paid and proof of proper notice must be verified before we can start the hearing for your application. That's all.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, can I ask them real quick? Is
Okay, sure.
that all right? Sorry. Can't leave my house without my wife giving me a list. As far as the next step with the letters that have to be distributed to the 200-foot list, is there a time frame in which those need to be delivered?
Yeah, you're gonna send them, you're gonna bring them to the post office, you're gonna get a certified mail receipt. And you're gonna make it very careful that you address them exactly as the list indicates, because if you do it that way, then you're protected. They have to be postmarked at least 10 days prior to the hearing date. And you also have to, who publishes in the newspaper? Do we do it? Okay, so you also have to publish in the official newspaper, which is?
Daily Record or the newspaper?
And that has to be published 10 days in advance. Not sent to the newspaper, it has to be in the newspaper 10 days in advance.
And then a copy
ultimately, you're gonna have to provide an affidavit of proof of publication and mailing, which will have all those receipts with a copy of your notice and a copy of the publication from the newspaper.
Excuse me, sir, and I have to receive that and make sure everything is correct. So that has to come in at least Friday before the meeting, Thursday or Friday before the meeting.
That's the affidavit?
The affidavit, the notice from the newspaper, and plus all of the proof of service.
And it's 10-day minimum, right? There's nothing that says you can't do this tomorrow, turn it in early.
Right.
And the testimony would be at the next meeting?
Yeah, if the notice is done correctly, yeah, you'll be on for next meeting, I guess, at some point, so, yes.
Is that all?
Is that all?
That's all I have. I didn't know if there was anything else.
You said.
Yeah.
Great.
Report back home.
I gotta miss bad time tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Drive slow.
The next matter on tonight's agenda is application BA 419, East Giuliano, Whispering Woods hearing, 49 Dogwood Road, rear, block 72, lot 12. Before we have any discussion, are the members of the board who will be recusing themselves?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing myself.
I will also.
So let the record show that Mr. Baza and Mr. Webster have recused themselves and are leaving the dais. Also, Mr. Eapen and Mr. Chinchada were not present at the 2020 hearing on this application, but have now read the transcript and have signed an attestation confirming this, so they are now eligible to participate in the hearing up to and including a vote. Before we go further, I'll ask Board Attorney Sullivan to swear in the board's professionals.
Would you both raise your right hands? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matters pending before the board this evening?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. I see an attorney for the applicant is present. If you please introduce yourself for the record.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, members, nice to see everybody. Larry Cadley on behalf of the applicant, Denise Giuliano, trustee for the property.
Okay, normally we get right into testimony, but this evening I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Sullivan and ask him to tell us what a Whispering Woods hearing is and provide context and purpose.
All right, let me just do some procedural history. By resolution adopted January 25, 2021, the board denied the application of Denise Giuliano, trustee, for relief pursuant to NJSA 4055D-36 to permit construction of a single-family home which is not abut a public street, and a variance pursuant to subsection 70C to permit disturbance in slope areas with 20% or greater slope, and a soil disturbance permit. That was a split vote, resulting in a denial. Subsequent to that, Ms. Giuliano filed an amended complaint in lieu of private writs in the Superior Court of New Jersey, Law Division, Morris County. That was docket number L000545-21, which sought all kinds of relief, including reversal of the board's decision. At that point, there were two defendants, the board and the Borough of Morris Plains. On August 13th, 2021, a stipulation of dismissal was entered dismissing the Borough of Morris Plains as the defendant. Subsequent to that, by order dated August 23, 2021, the court granted an intervention in the action on behalf of Martin and Tracy Dragos, who are the adjacent property owners, and their complaint was consolidated with this matter. Subsequent to that, Denise Giuliano and Martin and Tracy Dragos reached a settlement, which was memorialized in a transcript of settlement dated May 3, 2021, and a stipulation of dismissal with prejudice was entered on May 5, 2022. Approval of this revised plan comes before the board as part of a Whispering Woods settlement hearing. So the plan that's in front of us now is different than the one that was denied. If the board approves this, then the litigation is settled and it's dismissed. That's consistent with the court holding in Whispering Woods versus Middletown Township, 220 NJ Super 161. It was a law division case in 1987. So I'm going to ask Mr. Calley, would you agree that what I've just indicated as far as dismissal of the lawsuit is accurate?
That's accurate.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Calley, what witnesses will be providing testimony?
One this evening, Mr. Chairman, our project surveyor, Stephen Smith, he's also a licensed professional planner. He'll be testifying in both capacities this evening. He's the scrivener of record of plans, and he was part of the prior hearing, as I understand it from the view of those transcripts. So he is a continued witness on this matter, if you will.
You want to do an opening statement before we get to your witness? Or
No, I think Mike set the stage very well. I will say one thing. What you're going to hear from Steve Smith shortly is a delta of changes that reduce the steep slope disturbance. There's now an enhanced easement in place with our abutting property owner, the Dragos family, which was part of really was the primary point of the litigation with their intervention of that matter. The deltas are all reduced, and the fire department comments that were issued following the submission of the instant plans before the board, which do show reduced footprints for an ultimate structure and modified site plan details, can be complied with. So the fire department recommendations can be met with no problems. Mr. Smith will walk you through that shortly once we swear him in and qualify him.
Mr. Smith, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
For the record, Stephen R. Smith, business address 320 Route 10 West, Randolph, New Jersey. I'm the principal of Damon Engineering Associates. I've been associated with the firm for over 45 years. A licensed professional land surveyor, licensed in the state of New Jersey since 1984. I'm also a licensed professional planner, licensed in the state of New Jersey since 1985. I've appeared before planning boards and zoning boards of adjustment throughout Bergen, Middlesex, Morris, Somerset, Sussex, and Warren County. I've previously appeared before this board, and yes, my licenses are current.
Anticipated my question. Any questions from board members regarding the qualifications of this proposed expert? Right, witness is accepted as an expert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the boards we're going to show you this evening are all those that were previously submitted, so we won't mark them this evening unless you'd like us to, Mike, but these are identical to what's in the file. So Steve, if you...
I'm going to correct that. We're going to have to mark two of the sheets. I highlighted a couple of small areas to make it easier for the board to see what some of the changes.
Sheet is otherwise identical, but the color that's added?
That is correct.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve, if you wouldn't mind walking the board through the conditions here. I know you were part of this project in the prior application. Several board members may remember it, but if you wouldn't mind walking the board through the property
Yes.
and the delta of changes between the prior application in 21 versus what's being proposed now this evening.
Certainly. As indicated on the title block, it's composed of 4 lots, 2 in Morris Plains and 2 in Parsippany. And the reason for that is the lot owned by Giuliano has a small portion in Parsippany, and the lot that's owned by the Southeast Morris MUA also has a part in Parsippany as well as in Morris Plains. That I'm looking now at sheet 2, which labeled existing condition plan. This is the plan that is before you all this evening. What I have done is, in blue, I've highlighted the area of the new expanded easement area that was conveyed to the owners of lot 10. As part of the settlement with the Dragos, I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly, the easement area was significantly expanded, and there was a portion of new stockade fence that was installed in order to make the stockade fence now go in a straight line along the easement area as opposed to the way it bent around.
All right, so this is one of your 2 sheets that you've added color to. So we're
That is correct.
We're going to mark this as Exhibit A1, and that's otherwise identical to sheet 2.
That is correct.
Part of your submission.
That is correct.
And the easement you referred to was attached, was recorded, and copies were attached to the submission to make it.
It was, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Again, this is the existing condition plan. It shows our lot, which is 19,122 square feet. It shows our access easement along the MUA property as well as the construction easement that's adjacent to it. When I now turn to sheet 3, sheet 3 is now the revised grading plan and lot layout plan. That going through the changes from the previous application to this application, the size of the house has been reduced. The building coverage was reduced from 2,630 square feet to 2,477 square feet. That both the proposed dwelling and the proposed driveway were moved northerly further away from lot 10. That, as it indicated, we now have the new stockade fence that was installed up along that line as well. That these plans call for a proposed asphalt curb along the south and easterly side of the driveway. That will be changed to granite block curb. That was a boo-boo on my part. We had discussed it at the prior meeting and I missed it. Mr. Hall pointed it out. That will be amended. That in response to the letter from the fire department, they had raised a couple of issues on it. The first was they wanted a fire hydrant installed. The plans now show the proposed hydrant to be installed on the southerly side of the road in the vicinity of our driveway. There's a note on it that the exact location is to be approved by the township, so it needs to be shifted one way or the other. We will agree to place it where the, where the borough asks us to place it. In addition to that, the fire department raised a question on the pavement spec for the driveway. We had set up for what was considered a standard driveway, which was 2 inches of pavement over 4 inches of quarry process. Went back and forth, discussion with Mr. Hall. We increased it from the 2 inches of pavement to 3 inches of pavement, and from the 4 inches of quarry process to 6 inches of quarry process. At the prior meeting, there was also a discussion about the installation of a guardrail along the southerly side of the driveway where it was near that retaining wall. These revised plans show the installation of that guardrail as well. I'd like to turn now to the steep slopes plan. And may I label this A2?
Yeah, and what sheet is that?
This is sheet 5, steep slopes plan. On this plan, well, let me take a step back. With the prior application, we had 717 square feet of slope in excess of 20% that we were disturbing. This plan that you have before you indicates that it's 623 square feet. However, in re-reviewing the plans this morning with Mr. Gribben, we noticed that this section that I have highlighted in pink that was designated as a 20 to 24% is actually in the 15 to 20% category. So we are not disturbing 623 square feet, we're only disturbing 428 square feet. So from the prior application, we're going from 717 square feet down to 428 square feet of steep slopes disturbance. And those are the basic changes of the plans that are now before you. That we received a report from the Morris County Planning Board that indicated that they didn't have jurisdiction, reviewed Mr. Hall's report We have no issue with the items that he has in his report. Reviewed the planner's report. Again, we have no issue. It reviews and discusses the facts of the application. Have the letter from the fire department, which I discussed, and we were given a copy of the November 11, 2020 letter from French and Perillo talking about the soil disturbance, and we will comply with that. They're pointing out two issues on that. One was certain sections of the application as to the number of trucks and dates for the soil movement, when we know when and where it will be moved, assuming the board decides to act favorably on that. That can be completed, and yes, we are aware that it requires Morris County Soil Conservation District. We received a report as well from the MUA, and we have no issue with making the revisions that they requested on their report as well. Now, as indicated, there were two variances that were being requested, one for the construction of a home on a lot that...
So are you taking off your PLS hat now and putting on the planner hat?
I'm sorry?
Are you taking off your surveyor engineering hat and now going to planning testimony?
It's a combination of both, actually.
All right.
Again, the variances were for a building that doesn't front on a public street, and with that, we have to prove that we have adequate access to the property, which we have shown based on the driveway that's on the plans, as well as the emergency K-turn area that's been on the plan since the previous application. The next variance was for the steep slopes. Now we're disturbing 428 square feet, which is just a little over 2% of the entire lot. Feel that it is really very de minimis in nature. In going through without the granting of that variance, it zones the property into inutility. It cannot be developed without the granting of that variance. We have done everything to mitigate those any potential issues on it. We have erosion control methods that have been set in place to protect the downhill neighbors while during construction. We have now curb along the proposed driveway on the low side that will now cut off drainage that's going down towards the lower neighbors. Again, the dry wells that are picking up the additional runoff. That in going through it, you feel that these variances can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and neighborhood. And based on this proposed design, it's my opinion that the granting of these variances would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance of the master plan.
Thank you, Steve. That's all we have, Mr. Chairman, so we'll answer any questions you folks have, of course.
And we'll start with questions from our professionals. Liam?
Mr. Smith, just to confirm for the record that all retaining walls on this lot will be 4 feet or less, is that correct?
That is correct.
So if they, during construction, they exceed 4 feet, that would be a reason to withhold a CO, correct? You would agree with that?
Absolutely.
Because above 4 feet, they have to be structurally designed by P.
Understood. I've made my client aware of that, and as per your report, I believe there was an additional note that you requested to be placed on the plans, which we will add, that will then set up that there's no question that that's what has to be complied with.
Okay. And your grading plan achieves a grade of 3 to 1 or milder, is that correct?
That is correct.
And just for the record, Your plans do not show any disturbance within the easement area that's being granted to, that has been granted to lot 10.
That is correct. We will not be touching anything inside of that easement area.
Do you know if your firm will be staking out the limits of disturbance in the field?
I can only answer, I hope so.
Something that's not in my report, but it's so critical to this application is that the LDO, the limits of disturbance line, at the very least should be staked out by a professional land surveyor, stakes placed in the field, and reviewed and approved by myself before clearing takes place, at least along the limits of this easement of lot 10. That way, from day one, we're on the right property, we're not in the easement, those stakes will go up, and in addition to staking it, orange construction snow fence should be installed along the stakeout and maintained throughout the construction phase of the project.
And important matters like this can be captured in conditions of approval.
Correct.
May I just go back, the orange snow fencing, I heard that it's going to be maintained during construction, but where is that being located around the?
It's being located along the stakeout of the limits of disturbance line, anywhere near or adjacent to that easement with lot 10.
If I may, can it be either the orange snow fence or the silt fence required by the Morris County Soil Conservation District? We'll have one then right next to each other, because along the low edge by that easement, we will have to place the silt fence to protect them.
It should be both.
Okay.
Both orange?
And silt fence. Silt fence is required anywhere downslope of a disturbed area. The Morris County Soil Conservation District is going to make them put up silt fence.
And then the limited disturbance along the limits of the easement will be staked out by a PLS and reviewed in the field and approved by you prior to clearance, is that it?
Correct. But in addition to the stakeout, prior to clearing, the orange construction fence, staked construction fence goes up. Lots of times these LDOs have a way of kind of
Moving.
disappearing during construction, so that's the purpose of the orange fence. And one last comment, and again, this is not in my report, but I've given it some thought. Based on where the steep slopes are, what happens with the steep slopes are, that ordinance is really designed for impacts during construction. So when you open up a lot, you take off the vegetation, you have bare soil, and you're on a steep slope, you can have a bad event. So I would just recommend that there be a condition that the borough engineer can request and require extraordinary soil erosion and sediment control measures. And those could include temporary sediment basins. Those could include graded diversions to get water from one area of the lot to the other. And those could also include something called super silt fence, which is silt fence that gets mounted on a heavy duty wire mesh. In other words, it keeps it in place. It doesn't allow it to get blown over by a heavy storm event. I don't think you have to specify the three things, but those are some things that I could imagine that may be necessary during construction on the steep slopes proposed to be disturbed.
So the borough engineer can request extraordinary soil control measures relating to the disturbance of steep slopes, is that what we're talking about?
That's one. This happens all the time when we develop on steep slopes. The typical soil erosion and sediment control plan is not adequate to address the impacts during construction.
If I may, the plans already call for the super silt fence because.
Leon, we heard testimony about 3 inches of pavement, 6 inches of QP. In your opinion, that is satisfactory?
Yes, it is.
Any other questions for this witness, Leon? Leon?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions for this
I'm
witness?
sorry. No, thank you.
Liz, questions for this witness?
I just had a couple of clarifying questions that I believe were in my letter dated, what day it was, I think October 18th. The first was, you talked about the footprint of the building being reduced from what was proposed in 2020. Do you have the square footage of what was proposed in 2020 and how it relates to what you're proposing
The
now?
square footage of the building?
Of the house, yeah.
I do not. I just dealt with the coverage.
The footprint.
aspect of it.
And then the other comment I had in my letter, question I had in my letter is that it was indicated, I think, in your notice that would be a 2-story home, but then the architectural plans, it appeared to be 2.5 stories. Is it 2.5?
So, such a good point, Liz. So, and Mike and I talked about this, is the applicant is likely not to be the end developer here at this point. This has been so protracted of a process that Ms. Giuliano is likely to sell this property and someone's going to inherit this entitlement paper and develop their own structure on it. What the applicant will stipulate to is that it's going to be this footprint or smaller, square footage is going to be this or smaller, it's going to be in that location, so it's going to honor all setbacks, coverages won't increase thereby, and it's going to conform with the top height requirements of the code and also be what is on these plans or less is the plan at the moment. So the box you'll ultimately see, hopefully it's going to look really nice. We can't ensure it's going to be this box since we're not building it, but you're probably going to see, my guess, the 2.5-story structure out there ultimately.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And is it fair to say that there's no variances requested as part of the development of the house?
No, that's exactly why I made it a very clean approach, yeah. It was the section 35 variance and it was the steep slope variance. So the house itself is conforming today, it will be fully conforming.
But it won't be any bigger than what's shown on the plans currently.
That's right, because that was part of our settlement with our neighbor.
Okay.
That's right.
Liz, I heard the word inutility in regards to steep slope. Can you ask about that or tell us about that?
With regard to a C2 variance, I mean, or C1 variance.
I heard some testimony from the witness about inutility or lack of utility. What does that mean?
Okay, so my understanding is that you were talking about inutility. Was it with regard to steep slopes or with regard to not having frontage on the street, on a public street?
The steep slopes.
Okay, so you were saying, actually, why don't you
It's
just
a
repeat?
C1 hardship based on the topography of the property, that without granting that variance to allow the disturbance of the 428 square feet, then nothing could be constructed on the lot.
So what he's saying is that the lot would be virtually unbuildable without this variance, and that the lot would then sort of not having be unable to be developed for anything without there being some disturbance of steep slopes.
So do you agree with the applicant, with the witness's testimony?
It is a hardship, yes, yes, it is a hardship.
Any other questions for this witness, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the same thing as Leon. No, I don't.
Okay. Are there questions from board members for this witness? So I have one, I'll open with one. You mentioned before that it was 717 square feet previously, and now down to 428. Because there was some part that was originally shown as 20% or greater, but is not. Was that same calc error present on the 717?
Yes, that's why I indicated that on the plans, it's showing going from 717, which was the prior application, to 623 on the plans that are before you.
Okay.
But the actual number is 428, so that discrepancy still existed before, but the reduction is the same amount.
Leon, have you had an opportunity to look at that map, and do you agree with 428 is the right
No,
date?
no, I have not.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Barb?
Mrs. Smith, how long is the guardrail on the southerly portion of the lot, and how high does it protrude above the driveway?
The guardrail is approximately 65 foot in length. And as far as how high above the driveway, I was having a discussion with Mr. Paul this morning about confirming detail with him on it. We do not have a detail on the drawing now, but we will make sure that we provide a detail for that guardrail that will be acceptable to the board engineer.
Second question, what's the distance from the guardrail to the Drago's property?
To the Drago's property?
Yeah.
Approximately 16 feet.
Is that to the easement or to the?
That's to their property.
To
They
their
do not
property
own
line.
the easement.
I'm sorry?
I said that is to their property. They do not own the easement.
Okay.
It's right at the top of the retaining wall, correct?
I'm sorry?
The guardrail is proposed to be located right at the top of the retaining wall.
I'm sorry.
The proposed guide rail, as per your plan, is proposed to be very near the top of the retaining wall, is that correct?
That is correct.
Typically, guide rail is about 30 inches high.
Can you tell us why that was added? Can you tell us why that guardrail was added?
Yes, because at the last meeting, one of the neighbors came out and raised a question about it, and as opposed to arguing, we indicated we had no issue adding a guardrail, so we did. I mean, there's a retaining wall that will be anywhere from about 6 inches to 4 foot near the edge of the driveway. Felt that it was not unreasonable to add it, so we did.
Thank you.
And Mr. Smith, one last question, as far as if you,
Mr. Siet, do you mind speaking into the mic? Thank you.
how about the distance from the garage to the back of the driveway, then to the property adjoining that?
Just to understand, from the building corner,
Straight, no, not that way,
This way?
diagonally straight back from the
Okay.
garage.
30 feet.
That includes the driveway?
No, 30 foot is the driveway, I'm sorry.
Okay, and what's the distance from the driveway to the next property line?
That's kind of a trick question. At the closest point at the corner, approximately 7 feet.
No, I'm asking these questions because this was a point of contention in the last meetings and stuff. I wanted to see what we had done to address those concerns, that's all. Okay, thank you.
Again, I just wanted to make sure I was giving you the distances at the location you were looking for.
And there's no guardrails where the driveway curves, right?
There, we have
just
a
a straight run,
guardrail
right?
that is proposed in the area that we have the walls.
Right.
Where we don't have the wall, there wasn't the need to consider putting a guardrail.
The driveway's at a heavy cut until it comes up and bends to the right, so there's no need for guide rail there. Once you get beyond the retaining wall, again, there's no need for guide rail.
Any other questions from board members for this witness in this testimony?
I just have one. I'm going to direct it actually to Leo.
Can't ask me for
To help me, but that's it. In terms of the steep slope, the last time we did talk, there was significant runoff issues.
Mr. McCabe, you have to,
In the last meeting, there was significant questions regarding the runoff. And the steep slope plan at that point in time, you felt was going to be advantageous to the runoff that was happening. Are you still of that opinion with what they're proposing today? Like the grade of the 3-to-1?
I'm not quite sure if I understand your question, but
If I could, I think, Doug, without putting words in your mouth, when we last heard testimony, the question was raised, and you had opined that with the addition of dry wells and addition of,
Right.
I think, a trench drain, it was actually going to improve the runoff conditions based when compared to the natural state that it's in now. And I think Doug was asking, are you still of that opinion?
Yes, thank you. That was my question.
improve the conditions compared to what they are now. For most storms, that is correct. these dry wells are not designed to handle the 100-year storm, and you should know that. They're designed to handle 3 inches of runoff from all the impervious surfaces, which is much better than what the condition is out there now today. The thing you have to understand about runoff and steep slopes, that is only a temporary impact during construction. That's why you have this ordinance, because when you go into a steeply sloped area and you open it up and it rains 3 inches, it's gonna get ugly. It just happens all the time. That's why you take these extraordinary special conditions in terms of soil erosion control measures. Being on the site when it's active, quite often, keep an eye on it. But the reason why you regulate steep slopes is to address impacts during construction. So once it gets stabilized, the drainage plan, the driveways in a deep cut, all the drainage comes down to a trench drain, which is great at the bottom of the driveway, gets picked up and dumped into the municipal stormwater system. So what we're really trying to be concerned about and address here is the impacts during construction as a result of disturbing steep slopes during construction.
And in terms of the dry well and the other items that we had in there, they're still in this plan, correct?
There. I had a couple of comments about the drainage design, but they're fairly minor comments.
Okay.
Any questions from board members regarding this testimony? I have one final one from me. Just for, you mentioned briefly a Southeast Morris County municipal letter. So it's the one dated October 13th from SMC MUA. They have some requirements and recommendations. Does the applicant, your design will pick up the requirements?
I indicated that we had reviewed their letter and we have no issue, we will comply with that. As a matter of fact, they gave us a call before issuing it with a heads up and went through it with them, so no issue.
I'm just curious, who regulates that the purchaser of this property will adhere to the proposed construction? Who guarantees that the purchaser of the property will adhere to the construction plans as formulated in the architectural drawings?
I'll defer that to Mr. Sullivan, but if there is an approval, there'll be a resolution of approval conditions, and I believe that resolution runs with the land. So whether it's this applicant that builds this house or somebody else in the future, I think they're obligated to comply with the approved plans and all the conditions in the resolution.
But who actually controls that?
I do. The building department, when a permit is sought to construct the home.
I'm just curious to see where the controls are.
The controls will be myself and my, when I get phone calls.
Any questions from board members? Or open up to the public?
Members of the public, yes.
Any questions from members of the public for this witness? If you would, come up. State your name and address for the record when you're near a microphone. As a reminder, questions are for this witness and his testimony. So you need to come up and grab a microphone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Augenblick, 48 Dogwood Road, Morris Plains, New Jersey. The driveway's an easement? I'm sorry, I'm asking a question. Is the driveway an easement?
The driveway lies in an easement, yes.
And who's responsible for the maintenance and the improvement to the driveway?
The applicant.
And the driveway is owned by?
The applicant.
Oh. With privileges to be shared with the water company?
That is correct.
The tall evergreens that are in the back of lot 10, are they remaining, or are they coming down prior to the?
Remaining.
The guide rail will be on the far side of the tall trees?
It will be on the far side of
the north side of
on the north side of the existing fence would be on the north side of the trees.
Sorry, most of my questions have to do with clarification. If it was a detriment to build because of the steep slope matter, but it's been watered down to 2%, could a different design of a home be built that didn't disturb the concerns with 2% of a steep slope?
To disturb the 400 square feet, in my opinion, no. The steep slopes that are being disturbed are in the meat of that lot.
Okay. At whose cost does the fire hydrant relocation go to?
I'm sorry?
At whose cost is the fire hydrant?
The applicant has to pay for the hydrant.
And that includes other utilities, water, sewer, telephone pole, I don't know, electric?
Any of the utilities for the construction of this proposed home have to be paid for by the applicant. Electric, cable, water, gas, sewer, all of that is at the expense of the applicant.
So Ms. Giuliano is intending to do land improvements with no dwelling? Am I right?
Yes, you didn't say that.
I'm sorry? I thought I heard.
We don't have a house, so I'm assuming it's land improvements with no dwelling. Am I correct?
No, the improvements that are proposed are linked to the development of the property. If the property doesn't get developed, the improvements are not installed.
Okay. You're defining an improvement as being the home, not the lot?
If the home is not built, then the proposed driveway, the proposed fire hydrant, the proposed storm drainage, all the proposed utilities that would service that new dwelling would not be constructed. All of the proposed improvements that are shown on the plan are based on the development or construction of a home on the lot.
That concludes my questions.
Steve? Yeah, come on up, please.
I just wanted to clarify, is
Wait,
this just...
you have to come up, please, state your name and address for the record, even if it's just a
I think you're gonna ask, is this an opportunity to make comments?
Right.
Okay, this is questions only at this point. There'll be a later opportunity to make comments.
I'll be back.
Come on up, state your name and address for the record, please, into the microphone.
Rich West, 10 Corson Way. Last name W-E-S-T. Maybe the questions for Mr. Hall. The easement that you discussed before, is that what used to be Lake Buena Vista Way? Will no longer be touched?
I'm sorry, repeat that
The
question?
piece of Lake Buena Vista Way where now Kosakowski, the extension through the woods, is that the easement you were talking about?
No.
No.
If I may, it would be easier if I point
Yeah, 'cause I
on
didn't
that
see that.
for you. The board would indulge me. Dogwood, Lot 10, which was Drago's. The MUA property, this is our lot, this was the Kosakowski. The easement that they are referring to is right here, in between Lot 12 and Lot 10.
My question is on Kosakowski extension. Would you be using that in any
No.
way? No.
No, that will we be using it? We will be using it as part of the lot. I mean, because it has been merged into our property.
But you only own half that, right?
That is correct.
Because 12 Corson Way would only own half.
Absolutely, and if you look on sheet 3, it indicates the full width of Kosakowski and formerly Buena Vista Way, and shows that when it was vacated, we got half of it, and that's included in the lot 12.
Okay. Will the house be in that Kosakowski Way area? Or?
The way that it was set up, the house itself does not fall in the former Kosakowski Way. There's a little wall behind it that goes into it, but not the house.
All right, thank you. That was it.
Mr. West, what was your address again? I didn't hear.
10 Corson Way?
members of the public have questions for this witness, come on forward. Name and address for the record when you get to the microphone, please.
My name is Tom Manick, I live at 45 Dogwood Road.
Can you spell your last name, please?
A-N-N-U-I-K.
Thank you.
I guess the question is for Leon. Leon, you discussed about Leon.
Yes.
Leon, over here.
I'm here.
Okay. You talked about having an orange fence put in between Drago's property by the easement to not disturb any of that property by the easement. The limit of disturbance comes right up to the borderline, or the property line of my property over there. Can the fence be put up on that property line also?
What's your lot and block number, sir?
Lot 13, right next to it, to the right of it.
I don't see why not. You're right, because the disturbance goes right to the
Right
property.
to the property line.
Yeah, I see no issue with that.
So Leon, that would be the orange fence, and the silk fence also would be up to that property line?
If I may, that's on the high side, so it wouldn't require the silt fence, but putting up the snow fence absolutely would be a very prudent thing to do.
Yeah, the orange snow fence should go up along this gentleman's property line, which is block 82.01, lot 13. If there's a need for silt fence for a portion of that, then that decision will be made in the field at that time.
Okay. The next question is, so if the property is going to be disturbed at that property line, what's going to happen at the transition from that property line, Giuliano's property, to my property?
We're not touching yours, so
I
anything.
know, but there's going to be, I'm saying there's going to be.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, wait, time out. Gentlemen,
I'm sorry.
we're gonna do a complete question, and then a complete answer, and then a complete answer and re-examine. When we talk over each other, the secretary can't get before the meeting minutes, and frankly, board members have a problem here. Can the question be repeated, please?
Yes. If the property is disturbed by the property line, what's going to happen at the transition from?
That along the line that's common to your lot 13, that it is proposed that it is sloping down into our lot. With that silt fence along the side, we won't be touching it or redirecting flow onto your property.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, thank you.
What will happen, is any of this going to be disturbed?
Yes.
Okay, so from this being disturbed to my property not being disturbed, is there going to be,
No, that we don't touch your property. That anything, that if you're, this can't go on the record because you can't see it. But if this is your property line and we have to slope down, then it slopes down without touching your property. Any of these slopes have to be stable with a maximum 3-to-1 slope on it.
okay. And then, I guess last question. There's a lot of trees back there that provide a lot of shade in the summer. What happens if there's a tree on the property line and they want to remove it, and I don't want to remove it?
If it's on the property line and partially on your property, it can't come down.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
okay.
That's simple.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public have questions for this witness? Okay, seeing none, the witness can step down.
Thank you.
All right. Does any member of the public wish to make comments or provide testimony regarding this application? If yes, come forward, please.
Yeah.
All right, come on forward. Mr. Sullivan's going to swear you in the event that you end up providing testimony or support.
So would you raise your right hand, you swear to tell the truth of the matter pending before the board?
I did.
State your name and address.
My name is Shannon Mulvey, also of Block 13. I'm at 45 Dogwood Road. There's a lot of suits here. There's a lot of business talk. There's a lot of construction speak that I don't speak. I can only come to this as a mom on the property next door. So I would like to say that once upon a time, I was a young mom on the street. On one side of us was a house that would later be deemed a health hazard. It had about 25 Volkswagen Bugs going up into the second lot. It was a junkyard, so to speak. There's no running water in that house. On the other side of our house was this lot that we're talking about, along with the associated front lot. There was an empty pool in that backyard. It was just empty. It had no water in it, had no cover on it, it just had debris and leaves in it. No, nothing. As a young mom with, at the time, a 2-year-old and 1-year-old, I was afraid to let my kids be in our backyard because of the junk cars going up into the lot next door and because of this open pool. Thus they fell in it, got hurt on the rusted out vehicles. And to me, as a new member of Mars Plains, this was the community of caring. No water on one side, junk vehicles into the yard, and an open pool. There's still daffodils that grow around the outprint of the footprint of this pool. The day came along when the house on one side of us was sold, the one that should have been condemned. We were on the phone with the Board of Health regularly. They told us it needed to be condemned. I helped the former owners get rid of the junked cars by having them donate them to the fire department. I did it for them. On the other side of us, I came home one day and the pool was gone. It was just one day. I went out, came back, pool was gone. There was no construction site. There was no, I don't know if you need to pull a permit to be able to fill in a pool. This is where the driveway goes over. There's a pool under there. You could look where the daffodils are. It was there one day. It was not there the next day. It was just simply filled in. Currently, there's a tractor trailer pod sitting around the same spot. I don't know if that's allowed to be, had in our town. But there's just a tractor trailer sitting there. Is no one worried about sinkholes here? Was there a permit pulled for this pool to be filled in? And if we don't need a permit, maybe that's the case, but I don't know why. I would want a permit pulled to fill in a pool. So back to the other side, this out-of-town shyster shows up. He asked Steve Augenblick and I what the crime rate was in this town. He had already bought the house with the back lot. We know from the Board of Health that they said that house had to come down to rafters. It was not. He just, that was what was supposed to happen. He simply covered over condemnable property. He burned styrofoam and refuse next to our bedroom windows. His laborers found what looked like grenades in the house. They put them next to the dumpster, lest they were live grenades. We called the bomb squad when we saw them. We know what the house had going on in this house. Since then, 4 babies have lived in that house. As a mom, it scares me to death what was just covered over in this house that should have been condemned according to the Department of Health. This builder is long gone. He got what he wanted out of this town and he took off. Before he left, he came over one day to ask for my and my husband's signature to build his McMansion on the back lot. We refused for a number of reasons. At some point in time, after we didn't give our signature, it was decided he no longer needed our signature. So we needed it, didn't get it, but now he didn't need it anymore. We came here for a meeting about it. We hired a babysitter. We had young kids. We got here early. We parked in the post office parking lot. And that's when we saw the former mayor come out shaking hands with our shady neighbor builder. I ran up. What's happening? Oh my God. Oh, and they said, we already had the meeting. I said, and they told me you missed it. You should have been here. I said, I didn't know. I looked today. I came home. I had babies. We had a babysitter. He said, oh, we changed the meeting time this morning. You should have read about it in the paper. So as they were all shaking hands, I was like, oh my gosh, is this how they do business here? My mother worked for the building department for 20 years, that later became a nurse. My dad was a zoning officer after he had been a police officer for many years. But I still didn't know how business was done here. But I do know that when we left here, maybe, I don't even know what time it was, 9 o'clock? After arguing about it, by about 6:30, 7 o'clock, the next morning, the utility companies were doing markouts. So I don't know how this gets done at between 6:30, 7. We argue about it for a while. They said, no, you should have been here. Maybe we could have done something different had you been here. But anyway, utility companies were there doing their markouts, and I just can't believe he was able to get them there by breakfast time the next morning. Now back to our other side, the lot we're talking about. Suddenly, a 5,000 square foot house that somebody wants to build on a flag lot with an elevator. I understand that's not the plan anymore, but we came here 3 years ago. It got shot down. I think everybody was really listening to our concerns. She wants to now put this driveway that we're talking about on top of the pool that is, like I said, still here, still there. We don't know if that's the end of it. Business is business. We hear now that the builder is suing the town. Now we know changes have been made to the house, but now we're hearing about this Whispering Woods meeting. The way you explained it is that if a board approves it and the case is dismissed, that's considered a Whispering Woods meeting. I'm more interested in seeing if the board disapproves it and the case isn't dismissed. What is that called? Do we call it something else?
Let me just tell you, I can answer that for you.
Okay.
If this plan that's in front of the board right now is not approved, then the original approval will go to trial in front of a judge.
Which I could care less about. I mean, to me, it sounds like, oh, we're gonna get sued, so let's do it again. I mean, a little bit differently. I understand that this is a lot she wants to put on, but from my concerns, it seems, like I said, the board took our thoughts into consideration years ago. We asked board members to come over and see the property. We did see a couple. Why is it back on the table after the threat of a lawsuit? And why does the community of Karen care more about shady builders and building practices than the family that's been between these two monstrosities for 20 years? Our family has donated to this town 2 Eagle Scouts, 1 Silver Award Girl Scout Junior, and 1 junior fireman. Our service hours at this point are incalculable. I wouldn't even know where to start trying to put them together. Tom has been a Little League coach and a Cub Scout leader. I've been a Girl Scout leader and a Cub Scout leader. What do these landowners / builders / people who come into our town donate to their town, donate to our town that make their shady deals not only heard, but accepted? The last time somebody told us our yard wouldn't erode, it was totally false. It didn't matter what was said in this room and what the suit said in the plans and the drawings and everything that's Greek to me. I just know that we still lose our front yard ever since that house on the other side was sent to the builder, since it was put in. I don't believe that that 7 feet between the guardrail, 7 feet between the guardrail and our yard is a trick question. I think that is actually just a question. 7 feet. This is, I was a young mom when we started out talking about this kind of baloney. I'm an old lady now. I'm battling stage 4 breast cancer. I'm still in this town. These guys aren't. They're going to be long gone. But maybe we're getting to the point where we'll have grandchildren someday. They will be playing where they want to put this convoluted driveway in kind of crazy shapes in this house that faces a water tank on a corner in a flag lot. It's ridiculous. And we've already lost our yard to people like this. We've already lost the aesthetic of our yard on one side to a shady business plan. This person now wants to go out. She's going to be here right now, but I don't see her often. I see her pull into the lot once in a while, open up her tractor trailer pod, maybe some stuff is done. She leaves she leaves stuff there for just out. My son came home with a ladder just recently. Where'd you find the ladder? Oh, it was in the woods. Like, why is there a ladder in the woods? But anyway, I would like to say, as a mom, this is not where I wanted to raise my kids in the community of caring, just between Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And that's all I have to say. Can I go? I can go now.
Any other member of the public wish to make comments on this application? And again, even though you were here before, state your name and address for the record.
Well, we're going to swear you in first. You go up to the mic. Would you raise your right hand and you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Name and address again.
Justin Pataro, 52 Dogwood, Morris Plains. Does anybody know how, this is a question, does anybody know how that this lot became a flag lot?
Before my time on the board, so I can't.
Before your time on the board? Okay. So lot 10 and lot 12 were bought as a whole together from Mr. Giuliani back in 1979, with a pool constructed on lot 12, which made the lots conjoined. They were never separate. Denise Giuliano has pushed this separation of these two lots since June of 2003, and it has been shot down on numerous occasions, going all the way back to our town attorney, Gail Frater, who has numerous letters stating that you cannot and you should not separate these lots without going for an approved subdivision plan, making it an unbuildable flag lot by separating the two lots. Why are we here trying to build on something that is not permitted in the borough of Morris Plains, which simply states no flag lots permitted? This isn't the usual, I bought a house, pre-existing non-conforming use, and I want to put an addition on, and I have to go for these set variances. That's not what this application is about. This application is about forcing a buildable lot on a flag lot that's not permitted in the borough of Morris Plains. That's why I feel this application should be denied. Flag lots are not permitted. She didn't buy this lot as a flag lot. These lots were inherited to her after her parents passed away. She is forcing the subdivision of these properties to a flag lot, not permitted in the borough to build. And if we need documentation, I have documentation on all those letters from Gail Frater. Would anybody like to see those letters?
You can present whatever you'd like. If there's multiple letters that say the same thing, I don't think we need that. But if you want to introduce something, we can mark it as an exhibit. It would then become part of the record.
Okay, this first one, there's 7 copies here. This is a letter from Mrs. Giuliani stating that their decision on June 30th, dated 2005, stamped by the Borough Annex, that their listing 49 Dogwood for sale is being advertised and shown as a single lot. Upon closing of this house, we plan to pursue the variance for a flag lot through the Board of Adjustments. They said this is her asking, or telling you that that's what she's going to do.
These are multiple copies of the same letter?
Yes. I
Okay,
figured.
why don't you give one to Mr. Cowley? And we're going to mark one, give one to...
To who?
Secretary.
Sorry.
And Karen, you're going to mark that as 01?
Thank you. Here is another 6-page letter, but I highlighted page 4, which the discussion and the conclusion on the town meeting dated June 2nd, 2004. From the planning perspective, the proposed lot cannot meet this requirement due to the remote location. We point out, however, that this nonconformity is a direct result of a subdivision proposed and is not a pre-existing condition. The two properties had been developed as a single lot. Stamped on town letterhead. One to the attorney and one to the secretary. Sorry I didn't make enough copies. I thought I had enough.
Okay, so 02 is a planning memo dated June 2, 2004 that was written by William Densler.
Who's it addressed to?
Morris Plains Planning Board.
Planning Board.
Does the reason for the letter cite an application or?
Well, it cites a minor subdivision, appears to be a minor subdivision application.
Which they had probably done 2 or 3 times since the date of that letter, which I believe is 2004.
Yeah, it's 2004.
since you've provided this, do you know if this application was approved by the planning board?
All have been denied up until our last meeting of 2020. Was it 2020? 3 years ago we were here? 2 years ago. Every application has been denied.
Well, that's not entirely accurate. And I'm going to refer to Liz Laney's memo. And back in
It's 2014.
2014, an application that was similar to this one was approved by this board. However, subsequent to the approval, it was discovered that, among other reasons, that the easement had not been disclosed, and that was an easement that the two parties were battling over. And as a result of that, the board rescinded that approval. Okay, so then it was dormant for a while, then it came back in 2020, that's the one that we denied. That's the subject, I'm sorry, January 25, 2021, that's the subject of this hearing and Whispering Woods hearing.
But the point behind those letters is this subdivision was pushed by the Julianos. She didn't buy this lot like this. She separated two existing lots that she was willed in hopes to build on a non-conforming lot. You don't buy a non-conforming lot and then go for your variances.
Well, you have the right to do that, okay? You can always seek a variance, you can always seek relief. The relief they're seeking is to allow access, allow the building of a lot on a lot that doesn't front a public street. That's the relief that they're here for.
But out of no pocket expense from her purchasing the property. This property was separated by her. She didn't buy this lot knowing she was going to do this.
Liz, is the borough have a definition of flag lot?
Let me double check.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Sure.
So is it your opinion that when this was bought by the Giuliano family, was it one lot or two lots?
Back in 1979, it was considered two lots adjoined with a pool on it, making it the construction of the in-ground pool on lot 12 as an accessory to the residential dwelling on lot 10. It was an accessory lot.
So it was
to lot 10.
Two lots.
Right.
Go back in
It
1970.
destroyed the separated identities of these two lots and resulted in a merge of lots 10 and 12.
Well, wait a second, did the town ever merge the two lots? Because that's an affirmative action that a municipality can take. They can say it's no longer lot 10 and lot 12, it's now lot 10, or it's now lot 12. There's no evidence that they were ever merged by a municipality, correct? They're still two separate lots, as they are today.
Two separate lots.
Okay. So the municipality did not merge these lots.
That's not what I'm saying. I don't know who merged the lots, but they were.
No, I think the point is nobody merged the lots.
Then why is she going for a subdivision to build on lot 12? Because she's separating the lot from the purchase price of the home.
We have an existing lot 12 right now.
How did you get to that?
I don't know that, but I can only tell you that there's an existing lot 12, and the applicant has the right to seek 3536 relief, which is what they're here for, and to seek a variance for slope disturbance, which is what they're here for.
Okay, but the letter from the town says that it destroyed the separate identities of these two lots and resulted in the merge of lots 10 and 12.
What are you reading from?
I don't have a copy of this, but I could give it to you. This is from Virginia, Brian Esquire, back on June 22nd, 2005.
Okay. Hold on. Let me see that.
Sure.
Okay, this is not from a town official.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I don't see that being helpful.
Okay.
But she separated these lots.
Okay, I can only tell you that the town has not merged these lots. I mean, as far as, now we're talking decades, they've been two separately identified lots. Towns can, under certain circumstances, merge lots. They did not do that here. So this is an existing lot, and the applicant is now seeking the relief. And I think if you want to speak against the relief, you've made your point. I think we understand that.
Okay.
And if there's anything else you want to amplify about that you don't think that we should grant the variances, now would be the time to do it.
Okay, I said that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Mr. Smith, you're a licensed professional land surveyor in the state of New Jersey, is that correct?
Let me back up to the microphone.
I'm sorry. Do you still want me here, or I can sit down?
No, I don't think, Leon, you're not asking.
No, I'm asking Mr. Smith a follow-up question.
Sorry.
Did you survey these two lots?
No, I surveyed lot 12.
Is there a lot 11 owned by this applicant?
I did a survey of lot 12. When I did the survey of lot 12, the lot in front of it, lot 10, was owned by a different entity, was not owned by my client.
Did you survey lot 11?
Yes, we set up, yes, we found the monumentation to establish the MUA property.
So you did survey lot 11?
Yes.
In your professional opinion, there are two lots, 11 and 12, that exist today.
Well, that 11 in Morris Plains and lot 1 in Parsippany exist as one lot, and lot 12 in Morris Plains and 1.01 in Parsippany, which is the lot in question, exist as a single lot. We have deeds that set up the transfer of that individual lot that is the subject of our application.
Okay, I'm gonna ask that question again.
Okay.
In Morris Plains only, are there two lots, 11 and 12, yes or no?
11 and 12 are two separate lots.
Thank you. Contrary to anything else from a deed, I'm satisfied with this expert testimony.
Now, just to clarify, Mr. Hall, were you referring to 10 and 12 or 11 and 12? 10 is the Dragos property.
The question was asked of you of 11 and 12. You said they're two separate lots, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There's no question in front of you now.
Sorry.
Leon, any other questions?
No.
Any other comments or questions, comments on the application from members of the public? Please come forward. Once you're at the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Tracy Dragos, 49 Dogwood Road.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I just want to go into a little bit about when that application was approved.
The application before this board back in 2014?
Correct.
Okay.
When it was approved, as you stated correctly, that the applicant did not disclose the easement at all. But another thing that was also not brought up that needs to be known to everyone here is that the public and the neighbors never received any notice.
Yeah, when I said there were other reasons for it, yes, there was some problem with the post office that the notices didn't go out. In other words, they were sent to the post office, but they didn't get them. So there was a variety of reasons that approval was received.
Right, so.
And Mr. Evans, your right to object is limited under the settlement, so.
I understand that. I understand that. All I'm saying is that the neighbors were not notified either. That was another reason,
That's
so
correct.
it was
That is
approved
correct.
and then, the neighbors were not notified. Okay, so the public was not here. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I think that needs to be known because the public is here.
Thank you.
All right, Any other comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we'll close that. And Mr. Cowley, you have an opportunity for closing statement.
Very little, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the board again for their time this evening and your professionals for reviewing this matter. Relatively straightforward. What's before you this evening, a bit unique, but relatively, we think, straightforward. You've heard the request, Mr. Chairman, which is consideration of this matter, which would be in settlement of the pending litigation. It's limited relief. You heard Mr. Smith walk you through the delta of changes tonight. They're limited. The variance proves we can be justified. I think you heard support from both Liz and Leon as to the plan details and the justifications and proofs being met. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we're glad to put it in your hands this evening.
All right, now is the time for members of the board to deliberate openly in public and among ourselves. The time for questions has gone by, so it's deliberation and then ultimately a motion for action.
And I will tell you that if there is a motion to approve, I have a slew of conditions that would be attached to that approval, and I will read them off at the appropriate time.
I'll start. I mean, again, what we're here to discuss is the variance, which is the frontage and the steep slope. Correct?
The 35 relief, because
Yeah.
it doesn't front on a fully improved public street, right?
Okay. Nothing else? That's all we're looking at.
That's really what we're looking at, yes. There's a soil disturbance permit, but I think Leon covered that in his memo.
Right. Based on the testimony from our experts, it sounds like there is the hardship has been met, and I also see they've met with the frontage through the easement road, or the driveway that they've laid out. It seems like for these two very specific items, it seems to me like it's being met.
Anybody else?
I have a concern about that area that Leon wasn't sure of, that area that was decreasing slope. That's my concern.
Well, so the plan indicates that, first of all, let me back up. A variance is being sought because slopes greater than 20% are being disturbed, and that's not prevailing. And Leon, correct me if I'm wrong, the plan that you reviewed showed 623 square feet of disturbance area, correct?
Correct.
And so I think it's either 623 or 428, depending on whether that little slit is gone there. So I don't know if you think that's material or not, okay? But I mean.
And either way, it's less than what we saw.
Correct.
Having read the prior transcript, there were a number of issues raised by the public. I think a lot of those issues, if not all the issues, have been subsequently addressed in this revised plan that we presented today. And both Leon and professionals are satisfied with those changes, and I believe it satisfies the general concern, both safety. I think from a safety perspective, that was a lot of the main issues raised previously, and understandably by the neighbors. I think by virtue of the guardrail and the granite curb block, a lot of those issues, and in addition to the drainage plan that was in place, I think a lot of those issues have been satisfied.
I agree. My issue with the previous application was the height of the driveway relative to the neighbors, and seeing it moved with even in place, and the fact it's going to be less than a 4-foot retaining wall along with the guardrail. That removes that concern. I do believe that, if I'm understanding correctly, that this was never one lot, this was always 2 lots, and therefore the hardship was not created in any way by subdividing, that it was always a separate lot, and therefore it was deemed a buildable lot by Morse Claims, and therefore if there's a hardship there, then there's no reason to not provide a remedy
Well,
for
it's
that.
not a buildable lot until we grant relief under 35 and 36, and we grant the variance for the slope.
If that's an access to a road, it becomes an unbuildable lot.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the municipal land use law has a provision that says when there are lots that don't front on fully improved streets, you've got to ensure that there's adequate ability for emergency vehicles to get in there, and that's part of what we're looking at here.
So I would say, so my opinion, my position on this has not changed over the 3 applications that this has come before this board. So it really is kind of a narrow look. The history of the lot, whether it was 1 at one time, 2 at one time, 3 at one time, when the application came in front of this board, 2 lots. Right? So the big issue, the D variance that comes in front of this board, is regarding emergency access. So we've heard concerns raised by the fire chief, and we've heard responses that, and I'm paraphrasing, right, his concerns will be met. I've heard that there's some safety conversations talked about at the last meeting, and we see a guardrail provided on top of there. The slope of the driveway reminds me of Laurel Street, so if you've been at the top of the mountain there, there's some pretty steep slopes up there, and it's not something that the borough has not seen before. And the steep slope variance, I mean, I don't want to say that's nothing, because it's not, but it really is, as Leon said, it's during construction. Once it's stabilized and back, you know, it's addressed. So my position remains the same, where I would be in favor for approval of this application.
Would you like me to go through conditions?
I think that would be a good time.
Okay, so there were a number of conditions that we touched upon tonight. Leanne suggested about the.
Dave, just move this speaker.
Mr. Hall recommended that there be the ability for him to impose extraordinary soil control measures. We talked about staking the limits of disturbance. We talked about the silt fencing and the orange snow fencing that would also extend out to the adjacent lot 13. Obviously, the dismissal of the lawsuit with prejudice without costs. The home to be constructed will be in the location depicted on the plot plan prepared by the engineer, and the home shall be the same or lesser height, footprint, and square footage as depicted in the floor plans and elevations prepared by the architect. There would be compliance with the terms contained in the transcript of settlement dated May 3, 2022. That was the settlement between Giuliano and Dragos. Prior to the scheduling of a pre-construction meeting, the applicant/contractor shall provide the location to which it will export its soils will be taken and the information for the trucking company. Next, prior to any soil disturbance, the applicant shall provide either an exemption or certification from Morris County Soil Conservation District. Next condition, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall pay a sewer connection fee. Next condition, the applicant shall obtain a street opening permit from the Borough of Morris Plains prior to any work in the road right of way. The inlet headpiece shall be changed to provide horizontal slots only. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall post an engineering inspection escrow and amount to be determined by the borough engineer. The curb along the driveway shall be granite block curb, not asphalt, and details shall be provided. Prior to any soil disturbance, the applicant shall pay all fees, bonds, guarantees, etc. required by Chapter 19. Roof leader drains shall be provided and called out as to size, pipe material, minimum slope, and minimum depth. Sheet 3 shall be revised to add a note as follows: all grading shall be 3:1 or milder. The driveway pavement details shall be revised to specify a 2% cross slope. Prior to any soil disturbance, all items marked to be determined in the soil disturbance permit shall be provided. The retaining wall height shall be limited to 4 feet or less as specified on sheet 3. The proposed new fire hydrant shall be relocated to the north side of Dogwood Road, and details shall be added to the plans and approved by the fire department prior to issuance of a building permit. Guardrail details shall be added to the plans. Prior to the issuance of a CO, the board secretary shall certify in writing there are sufficient funds to cover all charges by the board professionals. The applicant shall comply with the November 11, 2020 report from soil consultant Joe Norton and obtain Mr. Norton's written approval. The applicant shall comply with the report of the SMC MUA dated October 13, 2023. Submission of proof of payment of all real estate taxes applicable to the property and payment in a timely fashion by the applicants of all outstanding and future fees and escrow charges in connection with review of this application prior and subsequent to the approval of this application. The applicant shall comply with all borough ordinances, rules, and regulations that are applicable to this development application and are required to obtain all necessary permits, including but not limited to CO, certificates of habitability, construction permits, and zoning permits. The foregoing approval is subject to the review and approval of requirements imposed by all federal, state, county, and local bodies that have jurisdiction over the relief sought in this application. And the applicant is bound by all representations made on her behalf and by her professionals during the course of the public hearing. That's everything.
And one I'd like to add, Leon, is it a fair condition of approval to say that if subsurface anomalies below the path of the driveway are discovered, that they will be rectified to the satisfaction of the borough engineer? So if somebody comes across the swimming pool that, sink down,
As it relates to the construction of the improvements shown on the plan? Correct. That's fair.
okay, thank you.
Did we capture the driveway, the 3 inches and 6 inches? Was that-
That's what's shown on the plan.
It's shown on the plan. Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't think I needed to add it as a condition.
Any conversation on conditions that Mr. Sullivan has made? Does anybody have a motion regarding action on this application?
Motion to approve the application based on the conditions as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McCabe seconds. Karen, roll call, please, for the right number of people.
Okay.
Mr. Sullivan, given the recusals, who do we have today?
If everybody is eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Epen?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Rizos?
Yes.
Mr. Cienciano?
Yes.
Okay, the application has been approved. This
Thank you very
action
much.
requires resolution to memorialize the board's action on the application for the record. This memorialization will be on the agenda of the regular November 2023.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a 10-minute recess. It's 9:17 over there, 9:27 back.
Is this for next hearing? I don't mind, I'm sitting all day, I don't want to stand.
We'll be back in 10.
Thank you.